The only answer that science has about what the mind actually is, what consciousness is that it's non-local. That's the conclusion science has come to about the mind, is that it's non-local. Okay. What does that mean? That means it's not trapped at any point in space or time. You can't locate the mind at any point in space or time. Guess what that means? The mind is metaphysical. The mind is spiritual. It's above the level of physical energy. The mind is non-local. So if your mind is not trapped inside of your brain, where is it? Wherever you put it. Wherever you put it. That's the importance and the power of your imagination, you all. Do you understand? Wherever you put your mind, that's where it is. And the CIA spent $20 million testing it, and they proved it. The mind affects matter. Your mind is wherever you put it. And your belief is far more powerful than you understand. Your belief is far more powerful than you understand. Okay, so if the mind is non-local, that means it's everywhere. That means it's wherever it wants to be, okay? So what is light? Light is a particle, but it's also a wave, right? Depending on how we measure it, it acts like a particle or it acts like a wave. That's every particle, that's every piece of quanta in the entire universe is a particle, but it's also a wave, right? So when you're stuck in thoughts and you're focusing on your egoic identity, you're activating yourself as a particle. You're condensing your energy into a point in time and space, and you feel really invested in that point in time and space, and you really, really need to be right, or you really, really need an apology. And what I want you to understand is at the same moment that you're that particle, you are also a wave, just like light. And the more you practice expanding your awareness into a field, rather than letting it collapse into a particle, the less struggle you have with any piece of information. And that piece of information is someone on social media saying hater shit, because that's what haters do. That includes your husband or your uncle or your cousin that doesn't understand you and talk shit to you. That includes your own inner critic that never stops complaining. All of those pieces of data become much less important when you can perceive from the perspective, from the dimension of a wave rather than a particle. Okay. Choose your own adventure books, right? We started with the idea of a book. And then Seth introduced the idea of a video game. And then we introduced the idea of AI and the simulations that they run for simultaneity. Now we're going to introduce the idea of the choose your own adventure book. You guys remember choose your own adventure books? Put a 1 in the chat if you remember. Did you ever read a choose your own adventure book? Put a 1 in the chat. So choose your own adventure books were these super fun, creative books that, like, the first chapter is the beginning of a story, and then at the end of the chapter you have to make a decision, and based on your decision you turn to a different page in the book, and depending on your decision there's a different story, and then that chapter you read that, and then there's another decision at the end of that, and then depending on your decision you got to turn to a different page and you got to read, and then you end up at a certain ending in the story, right? Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, sometimes you die along the way, sometimes you take the wrong turn and you fall off the cliff and you got to start the book over, right? So choose your own adventure books were like the first video game, basically. And what I want you to understand is that linear thought, your social personality, your three-dimensional persona, your identity, is like one of those stories in a choose your own adventure book. But people like me, we went back and we read all the other choices. And I knew all of the stories in every one of the books. So I'm going to take us back to what is the value? What's the purpose of the multiverse? It's the only way to understand the whole story. Woo! Can you feel me? It's the only way to understand the never-ending story. Don't make me sing the song. I will. Never-ending story. Okay, Falcor. It's the only way is to understand you're not a letter, and you're not a sentence, and you're not a page, and you're not even the fucking book. You are the conscious being focusing your energy on the words and creating a multi-dimensional experience that is so tangible you believe it's all of you. That's how good you are. Okay, and so we're just going to play with the boundaries of that. I'll get down off the pulpit. So choose your own adventure book. What we're doing with the multiverse is like reading all those other stories, reading all the other answers, and then you learn from all of the stories. It's not about the night was the right choice or this ending was the right whatever. It's about the fact that I gain the wisdom of all of those characters. And that's that realization step that I was talking about in the beginning. You have the manifestation value of, alternative personas, and then you have the realization value. Okay, so now we're going to get back to Seth. We're going to talk about these selves. Seth calls your alternative selves probable selves. Probable selves. And those would be like simulations to an AI, okay? And those probable selves live in what Seth calls probable realities. These are alternative realities. Now, he makes it very clear that everyone wants to believe that they're the real me, right? Like I'm the real me. And so you believe all of your probable selves are imaginary. But guess what? Your probable selves believe you're imaginary. To your probable selves, you are a probable self. And where you live is a probable reality to those other selves, okay? Now, how do we go about accessing this like crazy imaginary, like how do I, right? I told you in the beginning, the key is imagination. How did you go out and become the Milky Way galaxy? With your imagination. Your focus, you have to focus. You have to learn to control your energy if you're going to do anything with it. So you have to focus, right? But then, like, whatever you focus on manifests itself. That's the law of attraction. That's how it works. Whatever you focus on expands. Wherever you place your mind, that's what you experience as real. And we always believe our dreams, you guys. We always believe our dreams. We always believe our dreams. And waking up inside your dream, what they call lucid dreaming, is the idea of what the ascension process actually is. It's lucid awakening. It's waking up inside of this external dream. And what happens is just like when you wake up from a normal dream, you get a much larger perspective. You get a much larger understanding and truth.